Okay, right. Welcome everybody to the Planning and Highways Committee meeting today, the 17th of September. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence and declaration of substitute members.
I've received no apologies, so...
I think the only one is from Councillor Borman, that she may be late, or she might not make it because she's got a meeting at Lewis.
Right, thanks. So if she doesn't make it, I'll give her apologies then.
Yeah. I think she has. I think she informed Georgia and myself, and I thought you were copied in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, well, she might have been. But
yeah,
might have missed it.
Okie dokie. Agenda item 2: disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interest and interests other than pecuniary interests is defined under the C4 Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to matters on the agenda. Councillor Edson.
Yes, Chair. I have an interest in that one of the items is a near neighbour. I don't know them personally, but they're not very far away. That's 17 Rookery Way.
It's about four houses down opposite you.
Yeah. If you don't know them personally and you haven't got a pecuniary interest, you should be okay to go.
Yeah, I think it's far enough away not to make much of a difference, really. Yeah, right. I think you're okay there.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Argent.
You're muted.
Can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute yourself, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 18 College Road. LW 200478. I know Mr. and Mrs. Lord because they are councillors. Councillor in the North Ward here.
I think if Jeff, if you can.
Yeah, when we've done responses on Councillor Lord's previous applications, we've just done a normal response and then added a rider to say that the applicant is a member of the town council, so that in the response, the district council's aware of that, and that's been okay before. So if the committee are happy with that, we'll just point out that he is. So we're not actually making the decision, so it's the formalities aren't quite as heavy as they would be at a district council level. But as I say, we just point out that the applicant is a member of the committee, but did not take any part in the discussions on the application, and that members are happy with that. That's what I'll do.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah,
I'll be happy because we're all known to Councillor Lord, so I think otherwise we wouldn't be able to discuss the application at all, would we? And it happens at Lewis as well. So any other? Okay. We've got no members of the public, so we move on to agenda item 4, planning applications. Applications received week commencing the 16th of August, and that's LW/20/0145 14 Bramber Road. Open to the committee. Anybody like to comment on this application? Councillor Huntington.
Thank you. Afternoon, evening, Chair. Thank you.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, fairly straightforward, I'd say. So on this particular one, I think you need the safety rails there. So yeah, quite happy to support it.
Okay. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Edson. Okay. And if there's no comments, so can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's unanimous. Supported. Thank you.
LW/20/0472 3 Cliff Tops, Cliff Road. Open to the committee. Anybody want to lead on this one? Councillor Honeyman?
Thank you, Chair. Again, yes, likewise, fairly substantial, but as there's already, it's an improvement, I'd say, because it probably the Conservatives probably coming to an end, especially where it's placed. So I'm quite happy to support it.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Argent. Any other comments?
Can I just say that it does look to me to be quite a substantial increase in the size of the property. What do you think, Jeff? Is it perfectly all right in your opinion?
Well, yeah, I sort of noted that. I mean, yeah, Richard did say it's quite substantial, but as you know, the existing conservatory, well, they've only got a limited life, so as he said, it could be an improvement. I didn't actually see the site, but I mean, we could put that in our response if it was supported, to show that we acknowledged it was quite substantial. But as I say, I haven't seen the site myself, but it looks substantial, but not significantly substantial as far as sort of increase in floor area is concerned, yeah, percentage wise.
I think the garage sort of helps to conceal it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On the plans. So Councillor Hunman, do you want any further comments on your?
Thank you. Yes, no, I'm quite happy with it. I think you're right. You're right about the garage. Yes, it's almost like joins up in a way. It sort of does hide it. And I just say, I think, especially being right on the coast like that one is, it won't. I mean, they will have a bit of a limited shelf life, the existing conservatory. So yeah, if you want to put that in the comments, then Jeff, that'd be great. If you support it.
Yeah. Okay. And Councillor Argent, you're happy with those comments as a seconder?
Yes,
right.
I am, yes.
Okay. So can I have a show of hands on supporting this application with the additional comments?
1, 2, 3, 4. That's supported unanimously with those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. LW/20/0456 36 Stane Road. Who'd like to lead on this one? Councillor Edson, I think just before Councillor Meek.
Yeah, I had problems with this because the picture on the design statement, I looked on Google Earth and I couldn't find that. And I don't know where the bungalows are in Stane Road.
Yeah, it caught me by surprise as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I was explaining to Linda, I expected it to be one of the older properties in the conservation area, because when we have a Stane Road property to deal with, it's usually, a possible listed building or conservation area. But I didn't realise that Stane Road goes right up to Fitzgerald or Fitzmaurice Avenue, beyond Seaford Head School. So it does, although most of the properties in Stane Road are sort of period properties towards the centre of town, there's a few new bungalows beyond Seaford Head Junior School, which are completely different from all the other Stane Road properties. And this is one of those not so attractive bungalows, as opposed to the very attractive townhouses nearer the town. So yeah, to say, I was a bit surprised as well when I found it. It took some finding for me.
Yeah, so well, it doesn't appear to be 36 then.
Well,
or is it? That's
just wedged in between the school and the junction, 2 or 3 new bungalows right at the very end of Stane Road, where before it becomes Sutton Avenue. Sutton Avenue.
Okay, Councillor Meek.
It seemed to me, I don't know if I've misinterpreted the plans, but it looks to me like the extension is built onto the boundary. Is this permissible?
Yeah, I noticed it goes right up to the boundary of the property next door. It's only a very narrow gap, and it is permissible. I didn't, because you are allowed to go up to the boundary. The problem going up to the boundary is that you have to get the neighbour's consent to do any maintenance work on the wall, but the law does allow for that, and as a procedure for carrying out maintenance and going to the court if your access is blocked and things like that. It's quite a small gap, and I thought, well, I did notice it, but I didn't think it would be an issue, because it's quite fully developed already at the back there with the decking and everything.
I always thought, Jeff, that there had to be that recent planning had demanded that there had to be a gap of a couple of meters or so.
Yes, that's the sort of rule of thumb. But if you do go right up to the boundary, as I say, that used to be sort of for maintenance. But as I say, it's a relatively new procedure for getting access to a neighbouring wall. I mean, in certain cases, the neighbour might object, and they've got a right to object in this case. I didn't see any objections on the website. It doesn't mean to say there wasn't any objection, but you can go right up to the boundary, especially in townhouses. And as I say, it's usually with the consent of the next door neighbour. So, but that's a private matter really between the two properties. So in this case, I looked at the plans, noted that, but didn't think it would be too much of an issue in this situation, knowing what those bungalows are like. It takes up most of the plot anyway. It's quite wide and relatively shallow. So, I don't think there's a problem. But, other members might have other views.
Councillor Hanneman, did I see your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm quite happy with it. It is substantial, but as you say, it's lots of properties go right up to the boundary. They certainly do where I live at the moment, so it's not totally unusual. So I'd support it.
Okay. Can I have a seconder to that, supporting the application? I think Councillor Edson just beat you. Right. So can I have a show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3, 4 in favour.
And those against?
That's
one.
Carried 4-1, supported.
Thank you. LW/20/0478, 18 College Road. Version of a care home. Who'd like to lead on this one?
Can I ask a question, Chair?
Yes, certainly.
This presumably it's turning from a care home into residential accommodation as a kind of development. So I wasn't quite sure. Does this invite a SIL payment?
Yes. Yes, I think so. Yes, because it's new residential units, and I think although it's been a residential home, they're not classed. Residential homes aren't classed under the same use class as a private residence. So yes, it will involve SIL payments.
Right. Can I also say I found it almost impossible to detect what the differences were visually from the outside, because it's very difficult to make a comparison when you're changing from different different what do you call it, plans. I don't. Did anyone notice whether there's a change in roof plan that's kind of substantial enough to make quite a difference?
No, I think it's just converting, because it used to be 2 separate dwellings, and one's being converted into a semi-detached 3-bedroom house, and the other building is 3 flats. But I didn't see any roof plans.
No, I think it's more going back to what it was. It's more the removal of features that have been added than anything else, like the link between the two and a lot of the outbuildings and parking at the front. So there's not a lot of change in the actual appearance of the buildings. It's more taking away a lot of the additions that were necessary while it was used as a residential home. especially the link. And so it's going back to how it was originally as two substantial detached dwellings, really, I suppose. But, yeah, albeit sort of split into flats.
Yeah. So it looks as though the structure of the building is not actually altering,
No.
except for that link in between the two, isn't it?
Yeah. And the size of the flats is they're all a good size. There was a bit of a problem with the size of some of the units, the other conversion at Bybuckle Court, but these flats are quite substantial, reasonable size for 1 bed, 2 bed and 3 bed units.
Any other comments? Councillor Honeyman?
I know thank you, Chair. I know you did your homework before about how many residential units you need for this type of accommodation. It wouldn't be too detrimental to the town taking this away. In one sense, I know you'd gain other sorts of accommodation, but even though you lose a little bit of the residential side, don't you, care home side. So there's no problem with that as far as you know.
No. Well, this is, in a way, it's a windfall application that actually helps us with our housing allocation. We lost Homefield Place, because from the neighbourhood plan, it's one of the strategic sites. But you do gain bits here and there, and here we've gained 5 quite useful units, that would not have been foreseen when the neighbourhood plan was drawn up. So that's another benefit of the application, really. You're always going to get these windfalls, and this is a good example.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no policy regarding the loss of residential home places at all. So there's no policy regarding changes of use. No policy to retain care or nursing home places in the local plan.
Okay. Any other comments? So can I have a proposer and seconder on this, please? Councillor Mead, you're proposing to support this application, and Councillor Everton seconding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and can I have a show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3. That's supported unanimously. And I'll add the rider about the applicant being a member of the committee.
Lovely, thank you. We move on to LW/20/0479, 17 Rookery Way. Who would like to lead on this one? Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you, Chair. Again, yes, I think somehow it's quite cleverly done because it's on a hill, so it probably disguises it slightly. It is fairly substantial, but I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, thank you. Does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Everton. Any other comments?
I'm not going to vote on this because I'm afraid I seem to have missed it, so I haven't looked at it, so I won't be voting for that reason.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's carried.
Thank you.
Supported.
Right, planning applications received on the 30th of August. LW/20/0534 for Dymchurch Close. I think Jeff's got something to say.
I've apologise. This shouldn't have been included. It's obviously the owner of 4 Dymchurch Close has got these proposals. Part of them he claims are permitted development, and this application 0534 is an application he's put into the council for confirmation that half of the scheme is actually permitted development, but he's applying for a certificate to confirm that he doesn't need consent for those works in the loft space. So I put it on there because I thought there were 2 schemes that needed consent, but looking further into it, that application doesn't need to be considered by us because it's a technical application for Lewis to say yes or no to it being within permitted development scheme. So the The application that needs to be considered is 0535, because that's the application for consent for the extension. And 0534, if you just note that it doesn't require consent, then that's how it will go in the minutes.
Okay, so
Is that okay?
the committee happy to note what Jeff has said and about the application.
It's my fault. Sorry about the confusion.
That's noted. And so we move on to LW/20/0535 for Dymchurch Close, and this is the demolition of the existing lean-to extension. Okay, Councillor Edson.
Yeah, this would appear to be quite a large extension on the back of this semi-bungalow, but looking on Google Earth, next doors have got quite a substantial one too. So it would be difficult to challenge this in any way. My only concern is going back to that 0534, the proposed ground floor shows a bedroom. You can just about read it, but it's described as a bedroom and it appears to have a kitchen. So there's a change from that on the 0535. So I suppose we look at the proposed plan for 0535 and assume that's the one that we go for. We disregard the other one, yeah?
Yeah. Just disregard that. Lewis can sort out any anomalies between the two, but 0534 is just for a certificate under the a legal technical application. But I noticed that the extension goes out about level with next door. As you say, it does project a bit into the garden, but it doesn't go beyond next door's existing one.
Sort of mimicking the neighbours, isn't it? Any other comments? So can I have a proposer to support this application? Councillor Edson, and does that find a seconder? Councillor Argent, thank you. And can I have a show of hands of supporting this application?
That's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you. LW/20/0533, 155 Chinkton Cottages, Chinkton Lane. And this is a grade 2 listed building application. So who would like to lead us? Councillor Everton?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with this. I had a look and I didn't think it was obtrusive or anything like that. I think if they want to make these sorts of changes and have some heating and stuff, that it's fine for me. I didn't have a problem with it.
Okay,
it's not visible from the front at all.
No.
Any other comment? No. So you're proposing?
I'll propose.
Does that find a seconder? Councillor Edson, and can I have a show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's unanimous. Supported. Thank you.
Planning applications received in week commencing the 30th of August. LW/20/0440, 28 Carlton Road. Who would like to lead on this one?
Chair, I think it's a pretty big development, but it seems to me to be being done quite tastefully, and the gardens and things along that road are pretty big. I don't have a problem with it myself.
Okay. Any other comments? No. So you're proposing to support this application, Councillor Meek?
Yes.
And does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Everton. And can I have a show of hands, please?
That's supported unanimously.
Welcome, Councillor Borman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Apologies for the lateness. I've literally just finished Lewis District Council full council and logged on here.
Appreciate you joining the meeting. Right, you've just joined at the right time because we're on the South Downs National Park application, which was deferred from the last meeting. SDNP/20/02124/FUL, Seven Sisters Country Park Exceed. Phase 1 of the redevelopment. Councillor Everton.
Hi, yeah, I had a look at this, and I think we discussed it quite extensively with Councillor Lord as well, and I don't have any problem with it. This needs doing really down there, and putting that area to use and getting it sorted. So I don't have a problem at all with this.
Thank you. Any other comments? I think Councillor Borman just beat you, Councillor Hanlon. So.
Thank you, Chair. What I couldn't see was about a road crossing. You've got parking there, both sides of the road. They're trying to extend the centre itself, but there's no crossing, and that is so dangerous when you drive down there and large groups are just running across the road. And I think that's something that they should have actually put into their application, is a crossing for the road between the car parks and the centres itself. And the park itself, they're getting rid of some of the parking to extend their buildings, which means they're losing spaces, and there is going to then cause an issue because people are, if you go down the road to is it West Dean, isn't it, that people are parking on the verges and everything because they don't want to pay for the parking. So I think it's something that they are missing there, and they do need to look at.
Yes, the Cuckmere Valley Parish Council objected, not in principle, to the use of the buildings, which they supported, but they did say that some thought needs to be given to the parking and the additional traffic. And I know that East Dean Parish Council considered it at a meeting a couple of days ago, at their planning meeting, because neither East Dean nor us were consulted originally, but we've been consulted quite late in the day. And East Dean supported Cuckmere Valley's view that not enough thought had been given to highway safety and parking, and pedestrian safety and traffic safety generally. It is difficult though, because whereas you'd not, with a spot as busy as this, you could give consideration to a footbridge or a crossing. It comes so close to Exeat on such a busy road that a crossing there would add to the traffic problems that you've already got there, and a footbridge would be out of character and sort of have a detrimental impact on the general appearance. So it is a difficult problem, but I think the general feeling was more thought needs to be given to how the traffic is to be dealt with, because it's inevitable that there's going to be an increase over the years if all these additional units of accommodation and shops and expanded information centre is to be put in. It's busy enough as it is, especially this year, with more people taking breaks at home rather than abroad. So that's the general consensus of the other parish councils and the individuals, residents around there who have objected to it. As I say, they see the benefit of using those buildings because they haven't been put to good use for some years because of, I think the county council didn't have the funds to invest in it really, but now they need to be put into use, but some thought does need to be given to the traffic. Whether they can be resolved is another matter, but that's for the South Downs to decide really.
Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, what Councillor Bourman says, yes, I could echo that in the sense it is, and what Jeff said, it is basically the traffic side. I know historically, over the years, there's been various sort of schemes that the county council has actually done, isn't it? So obviously we hopefully get the new bridge the other side, but then there's going to be at one stage there's going to be a road running parallel to the existing road and doing a little bypass, wasn't there, at one stage?
Yeah.
But I don't think that never really got very far, but I think you'd think the National Park would work a bit more with the East Sussex County Council Highways to sort of try and solve this problem. But having said that, if there's money to do the buildings up to a point, it would be a shame to lose it. So it's that sort of balance, isn't it, in that respect? But I don't think some sort of crossing, I'm surprised this hasn't been there for by now. And you're absolutely right, with the COVID situation, it has increased the number of visitors all the way through the spring and through the summer. So thank you very much.
Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I mean, I looked into this a while ago, actually, not in relation to this application, but it was something to do with some other issues that were down there. And I'm aware that they looked at almost every traffic solution that exists has been looked at for that spot, and none of them can be used for various reasons, or the knock-on effect of them, or things like that. And I think until the actual bridge itself is sorted out, that little bit there is not going to be resolved. But I know there's been like real in-depth looking into multiple options there: bypasses, footbridges, pedestrian crossings, all sorts of nothing has come up that's either suitable, in keeping, or actually safe. Because I think one of the routes that they wanted for the pedestrian crossings was deemed to be actually going to put people at risk that were crossing there. So I just really want to see the buildings get the opportunity to get the use and get the expansion. And I think that the road thing, I don't think there's an easy solution to it, and I wouldn't want to limit what we accept as being done to those buildings now based on the road, just because it's kind of a bit of a conundrum, and I think it will get resolved later, particularly after the bridge is done. I do know it's a problem, but I also know that many an expert has looked at it. No one's come up with a solution, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Councillor Bourman?
Yeah, just replying to Councillor Evenden, I agree the buildings do need work on, but when the bridge is done, there'll be more traffic. Although it'd be easier flowing, there'll be more traffic through that area, which means something needs to be done. And I don't know whether the South Downs National Park does S106 like Lewis District Council do, that actually then they can actually say, well, you need to put some form of crossing in, and highways can come back in on this as to whether it's a zebra crossing or a bridge or something. But I think something does need to be put in place, because even now the amount of tourists and people that just run across that road, I'm surprised there's been no deaths up to now. So I think when they're trying to expand, which is all great, but something does need to be put in place in that road.
Everton coming back?
Yeah, I actually agree with Councillor Bourman, but I think that one of the reasons that they're not coming up with the specific option now is I talked to someone about this a couple of months ago, but they're not sure what sort of an impact the bridge will actually have when it's resolved. But I think probably we'll end up with a footbridge there, because it's the only one that will work, even though it'll be sort of out of keeping. But it's actually the only solution, because I've seen an option of a mini roundabout. There was a mini roundabout mooted at one point, and it was, I know, and then there was going to be 2 pedestrian crossings, one for the side for the car park at the rear and one for going across, and it's already carnage at that intersection. So I'm quite sure that one day they'll put a footbridge in there, because there's resistance about how it will look. But it's actually the only option. It's the only option. But you know, I think that at the moment it's really difficult, and I'm sure it will get resolved, but it's not something that can be answered now.
No.
Councillor Lake?
I think another option would be a tunnel.
Yeah.
Very expensive, but it's very safe. And also, animals could go through the tunnel as well without getting killed.
Yeah. Ideally, it would be a tunnel.
Councillor Edson.
Yeah, that sounds a really good idea. When you think they could put the tunnel up the hill slightly, which would alleviate some flooding, and that would allow the sheep to have quite a bigger run round, wouldn't it? But that would be the most safest thing and the best thing, you know, better than a bridge, which doesn't look quite in place there. But it's all a question of money, isn't it? You know, would they be able to secure the funds to build an underpass, which is probably the best thing they could do, even before the other stuff.
Yeah. Any other comments? Well, I spent quite a lot of time going through all this morning, and obviously the parking issues was the sort of comes out as the #1 priority on this development, although nobody was really objecting to the new development and the refurbishment of the cottages and that. There was quite an interesting letter from Saltmarsh Cafe Restaurant, where, you know, there's quite a few facts which need to be ironed out, which the South Downs National Park have sort of got wrong, so they need addressing. A lot of comments on the meanders as well, and you know, if that's going, you know, because that is part of what people come to see, and with them how they were last winter, and then coming into the summer where you had awful smells from them, so that needs addressing. What else was there? The thing which I wasn't too keen about was the extension to #1 cottage with the black corrugated metal, and I just felt it was outkeeping to the cottage. To me, it just looked like a carbuncle on the side, but where they used it for the camping and barn, it sat in quite well. So that was is one of my comments on it. As I say, in principle, I think we all support the phase 1, but these points do need addressing before it's passed, in my opinion. Don't know if anybody wants to come back on that.
I think that just sums it up here. It'd be a great idea, but there's so many things that get in the way of it, you know, like, for instance, the 259 running through the middle of it, and you know.
Anybody else want to make a further comment? Councillor Borman.
I agree with everything you said. Is in principle, I think we all support it. It needs doing. It will bring more tourism to the area and to Seaford itself, but there are issues that they are overlooking. And even with, as you said, Saltmarsh, in their Saltmarsh's objection, they said they had discussions, but they seemed originally with the pre-proposal, but they've all been overlooked, and so I think it is. Although we support the application in principle, there are things that we do need to put down that we do kind of object to, or they need to look into more before it is taken forward fully.
Yeah. Councillor May.
Can we support it conditionally? In other words, we support it on the condition that something is done about pedestrian crossing of some kind, because we think it's too dangerous, particularly with the probable increase in traffic.
Yes.
We could say something along, I mean, I've been taking a few notes. We could say something along the lines of, we support the phase one of the, you know, the refurbishment of the buildings in principle, and support bringing the sort of neglected and empty buildings into beneficial use. But we are concerned that the traffic and the pedestrian safety issues need to be addressed very carefully before all the buildings are brought, you know, before the refurbishment of the buildings is completed, and particularly how to maintain safety for pedestrians crossing the main road, and how to control the additional parking that's going to be required, and put a provision on the end. There's also concern about the treatment of some of the existing commercial tenants at the park, particularly the occupiers of the Saltmarsh Cafe, and you know, and ask that their concerns be given, you know, be considered, or something along those lines. Because I read those documents as well, and I was a bit. I've visited the restaurant. Other people probably have as well, and it's a very nice place, and there seem to be, you know, their concerns are being ignored at the moment at the expense of all the other commercial points that are going to be added to the refurbished scheme. So we could add that, so something along those lines.
Yeah.
Not exactly conditional,
No.
but you know, concerns that additional traffic, pedestrian and motor traffic, that is bound to generate. You know, how that's controlled is going to have to be addressed very carefully before the refurbished scheme takes effect, sort of thing.
Councillor Honeyman?
I'll just come back quickly. I'm just looking on the South Downs National Park website at the moment. You know, there's no input from the Highways Authority yet. When do they have to put their piece in?
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, it doesn't go to committee until October the 8th. They sometimes do submit their views quite late on. So yes, I've been looking for that the same way. So it'll be interesting to see. There might be quite a bit of discussion going on
behind the scenes, no doubt. Yeah, between
to try and get them on side, you know, because obviously they want everything ironed out before it goes to committee. It was submitted late April, so it's had quite a long gestation, and I think a lot of that has been probably ongoing discussions with county as to how they get to the stage where there's not a formal objection, perhaps. You know, I don't know, but that's just reading between the lines. So it'd be interesting to see.
And how about the extension to the cottage? I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
Well, yes, we could add that as a rider along with the concern about the Saltmarsh restaurant, that concern about the design features, the design feature at number 1 Foxhole Cottage, is that right?
That's it, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth adding if members support that. Just, I mean, it does show that we've looked at the plans as well, but that's a marathon task in itself, with what, 227 documents so far. Most of them, or a large majority, plans or other sorts of supporting documents for the development itself.
Yeah. Okay, if the committee is happy for that to be added. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So that was the actual look of the cottages and the camping barn area. As I say, it fits in quite well in that area, but not on a, sort of a.
I'll mention both, both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So can I have a proposer and seconder if there's no other points to be made? Thank you, Councillor Everton and Councillor Borman. And can I have a show of hands, please?
1, 2, 3. That's unanimous with all
Thank
those
you.
there's different elements included.
Yeah,
Thank you.
lovely. Thank you. Move on to tree works, and that's TW/20/0066, 10 Harrow Close, and this is just off the or backs onto the Alfriston Road. Okay, comments? Councillor Edson?
Judging by the look of the Google Earth, you can't see much of a garden, presumably from those trees. And personally, I think that they should be looking at these trees and how they're growing so close to a main road like the Alfriston Road.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm quite happy to support this.
Yeah.
Okay, does that find a seconder? Councillor Borman, and if there's no other comments, can I have a show of hands, please, of supporting the application?
Thank you. It's unanimous.
TW/20/0068, Newland School, Eastbourne Road. I think this one, it's the applicant is actually somebody from Harrison Road.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
It looked to me as if it bordered Sutton Place rather than Newland School, but I don't know exactly the lie of the land around there. But I think Newland School is a bit of a loose way of describing the site. I think it's more Sutton Place, but it's obvious there's not a lot of, as with a lot of these tree applications, there's not a lot of information in the application. Obviously, the person at number 8 Harrison Road has got these branches overhanging her garden. Normally, she'd have the right to cut down the wood and give the wood to the owner of the trees. But in this case, because they're subject to a TPO, she's got to make formal application. But there's very little information, but other than the fact that she just wants to cut the overhanging branches back by 3 meters, which obviously is a relatively minor operation, but something she still has to apply for consent for.
Yeah. Councillor Lee?
I would like to propose that we support this application.
Thank you. Does that find a seconder? If there's no other comments, Councillor Edson? Thank you. And can I have a show of hands, please, supporting this application?
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Right. Go on to agenda item 5. On page 4, and the changes to the current planning system, white paper consultation. We're discussing this one because this one has to have our reply by the 17th. Jeff, thank you for your report on this. It's been very useful. Would you like to?
Yes, I mean it's
anything?
It's the lesser of the 2 white papers. The other, the bulky white paper is the planning for the future, which Councillor Borman I think said that Lewes District Council have got a seminar on later this month. So on that one, the bulky one, that contains quite a significant, quite a sweeping reform of the planning system. That report, item 6, is just for members to consider at the next meeting on the 8th of October. So it's given to members a bit early because it's the more important of the 2 documents. This one, item 5, which needs a response before the 1st of October would, so it means that we have to respond now rather than at the next meeting on the 8th. That would be too late. I've split it into the sort of main subjects and put my own comments at the end of each part to sort of help with discussions. You don't necessarily have to accept my comments, but as I say, they're just put there to assist members in the consideration. There's the first home scheme and the effect that might have on the supply of affordable housing. The supply of affordable housing is a sort of theme that goes through both white papers, and it is quite a concern as to how the reforms will fulfill their claim to actually increase the supply of affordable housing over and above the current levels, because it's sometimes difficult to envisage how that's actually going to happen if these reforms come into effect. It's part of this lesser white paper's purpose is also to give a boost to smaller developers who would have suffered from the lockdown restrictions and the sort of dip there was in building and in the housing market earlier this year, which they're still recovering from. So they're given it's quite a major concession though to allow sites of up to 40 or 50 dwellings to exempt themselves, if you like, from the provision of affordable housing, because in an area like the southeast where there are less big sites and more smaller sites because of the lack of available land, it does mean that a large majority of housing developments will be exempt from supplying affordable housing contributions, or contributions by way of actual built units, or sums of money in lieu. 40 or 50 is quite high, much higher than the current level of 10 units, which is built into most local plans. And there's yeah, so that's the main part of it. As I say, the concessions for sites of up to 40 or 50 dwellings, and the fact that the government that's delivering first homes, the First Homes initiative will also affect the supply of affordable housing, because developers will be expected to, whereas before they would be obliged to give, say, 30 or 40% affordable housing on qualifying sites or money in lieu. Now part of that 30 or 40% will be to first homes for sale, whereas there's still a need for housing for rent. So the housing for rent provision will be lowered at the expense of housing for sale to first-time buyers. Well, everybody recognises that first-time buyers need support, as well as people seeking housing for rent, but it does mean that it'll be more, affordable home provision will be far more difficult under that sort of scheme. So anyway, those are the main issues that are set out there. As I say, my comments are sort of added there just as a assistance in getting debate going on the various parts of it.
Okay, so open to the committee who would like to make any comments, or would like, comments to be put forward. Councillor Hanneman.
I know that will be losing Seal, so I don't know if that does have a factor. I'm just thinking of Seaford as opposed to general situation. So losing SIL on this, will it affect?
Well, that the loss of SIL and the replacement is more in the second report than the first one.
I know. It
Yeah,
is.
and so I mean that's a debate. There's a certain overlap, and that's mainly part of the debate on this on the next meeting. As far as
has a lot of this come out? This must have been thought about even before COVID. This particular, or was it? So is the key workers been expanded to? It depends on how you define a key worker now, because that's been expanded in these COVID times.
Yeah, well, that could be part of the comments, and also, I mean, as I said, I think in the comments on this second paper, it's very, very difficult to before the bill's published. It's difficult to know what the detail is, and it's difficult to make informed comments without the detail, particularly with the replacement of SIL by these infrastructure payments, which, as I say, it just mentions that they will give local authorities more than they get at present, but it doesn't actually explain how. And until the bill is, there are gaps in this. It's very much a skimming over of the system, and the detail will come when the bill's published, and that might not be for another year or so, with all the other things that the government have got on its plate, But if it wasn't for those issues, this would be a priority, I'm sure, at the election time. Last December, it was envisaged that this would be up and running by now, but obviously other things have got in its way. But there's no real indication of how these new infrastructure payments are going to work, and how only a general view that they will increase infrastructure payments to local authorities. Whether money will filter down to parish and town councils is another matter, because, as you know, the neighbourhood plan in place means that we get extra SIL. They're tied together. We don't know whether the fact we have a neighbourhood plan will help us get more of the new infrastructure payments or not until the detail is explained. So, although we're quite happy at the moment because we get an extra percentage, and that will be the situation for 2 or 3 years, I'm sure, because it will take a long time for this system to get up and running and be passed through. So.
That's sort of one of the reasons why we did the neighbourhood plan. I mean, it's cost the town a lot of money, but because we get this increase in the SIL money. I know, we've sort of touched on designs of new properties in the area on the neighbourhood plan, but at the end of the day, how much is these, and I know we might be creeping into the second paper, but encroaching on the value of the neighbourhood plan.
Yeah, they claim that the neighbourhood plan will still be, they'll still be sort of upheld and everything like that. But it seems as if they want the local input to be more on design and detail than principle. That's the problem, because they see that local residents and local councils' input and the principle of development is what is holding up the system. That seems to be the general view. So they want to centralise more, speed up the approval of the principle of development through 30-month local plans and clearer designations in local plans of where development is going to go, and making the local plan the most important document. And so that when the local plan is published and confirmed, the zones will be designated for residential development in principle, and at local level they'll just be dealing with the detail and the design and the layout and things like that. So that's how the system is generally going to work, but that's more in the second white paper. This is, as I said, this is more tinkering with the current system, changes that are going to come in the next few months, particularly regarding the help for small builders, and the fact that I think they see the provision of affordable housing as being holding up the development of a lot of the smaller sites by the smaller developers, because it's just not viable. So that's why they want to exempt these sites of up to 40, 50 dwellings from the provision of affordable housing to get housing moving. So in the short term, it's going to affect the provision of affordable housing, you know, which is important at a local level. So that's one of the main issues here. That's issue number 4.
Yeah, I mean, that is sort of going to hit affordable housing in our area, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because a lot of the developments are going to be no more than that, 40 or 50, especially after Newlands.
Well, you can sort of confirm your disapproval or concern at the fact that in the short term, it's likely that the provision of affordable housing is going to be reduced, you know, at a time when it's needed more, because you know, the likelihood maybe of increased unemployment, you know, and the economy is not going to do so well over the next year or so, means that, you know, affordable housing will be more in demand than even in now and in the last few years. I mean, it's up to you, but it's one of the issues that you could put forward in the consultation.
Yeah, if everybody else is happy like that. Councillor Meek.
So I just wanted to ask what it is we're supposed to be giving our opinion into this debate. Is that right?
Yes.
We're not supporting something. We're just giving our
It's a consultation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
I would suggest exactly what you said, Jeff. I think, well, personally, I would suggest we ought to say that we object strongly to any reduction in the availability of affordable housing. We only have to see what happened at Newlands, where the developer, quite frankly, you know, brazenly tried to get away with providing less when they'd actually guaranteed what they'd originally, and it was only through local outcry that they've actually kowtowed. Whether they will still deliver that remains to be seen, of course. When it comes to it, they might turn around and say, oh, it's not working financially for us, and we really can't do it. We're not going to make enough profit.
Well, yeah, I think it's secured in the Section 106 now.
Oh, is it?
Well, I think it's very, very close to completion, the Section 106 agreement.
I mean, I think it was when it was passed by Lewes District Council, it came to the Downs, if you remember. And if there was,
yes,
part of it was, if it wasn't agreed by a certain date, then they would have dropped the affordable housing, but it all went through before that date. So
I think they're tied to the 25% now.
Yeah, I will say, because it was the officers which, because Bellways were very, you know, they sort of had the public consultation. Our planning committees up at the View, and they were represented, and the work of our officers behind the scenes sort of improved that development a great deal. There was a lot of work what went on behind the scenes with Bellways, with the head of planning at Lewes and our own town council officers at the time.
Thanks.
So you know, we knew it had to be built on, but it was getting it right. So we're slightly digressing from what we got before us.
Shall I sort of assume that your main concern, as far as this lesser white paper is concerned, is that it'll mean a short-term reduction in the provision of affordable housing, which you think would have a sort of an impact at local level, which should be sort of, and if the government do intend to help smaller builders or developers of smaller sites by allowing this exemption, it should be for a shorter period as possible, so that you know, the provision of affordable housing doesn't suffer too much, you know, because of the importance of affordable housing locally, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Because they haven't actually said how long this exemption would last. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year.
Yeah.
But so I think that's the main element of it.
Is everybody agreeable to that?
Is that okay?
Yeah. Is that okay with everyone? Councillor Mead?
Chair, I would like to say that I think it ought to be couched in stronger terms than that myself. But that's me personally. I think, Chair, if I may, I don't know if it's to do with the second paper, Jeff, but I think it's a shame that, considering the government said a few years ago that they wanted to kind of devolve more decisions to local areas and local councils and things, I think it's a shame that they're now seeming to want to take central control of all these things and not actually give local people the option to decide what's best for their area, just because it's slowing the process down. But surely the whole point is that people who are living in the area need to be making these decisions. That's why we're talking now. You know, we're a local council.
It does go a bit go against the Localism Act, you know, which is only 10 years old, but it is more of an issue in the second white paper, really. That one. So so yeah, that's why that's the more important one in a way, and that's why I've put that on the agenda now. So there's plenty of time to sort of absorb that before we discuss it at the next meeting on the 8th of October. And the district council members have the advantage of actually going to their own seminar, which might come up with a completely different views. They might come up with completely different views than I've put in. So, you know, you'll have the benefit of the powers that be at Lewis's views on it as well, and which you, Councillor Borman, can feed into our meeting next time.
Well, hold that thought, Councillor Mead, the next meeting.
Yeah, I think.
Councillor Borman.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, we've got, I think it's the 28th, about 6 p.m. So I will be taking numerous notes, and I will email them out to all of you of what the officers from Lewis District have fed back to us.
It'll be nice.
And yeah, whether it's against what we think, but I will feed it back to you.
Okay, that'd be very much appreciated.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you. Any other comments? So, if members are happy with what Jeff has highlighted on the affordable homes and how it affects our area,
I think that's the main point. Obviously, the chair will see the draft minutes before they go out, so you know there'll be a sort of a check on that. But I think that's the main issue from this paper. But I also mention SIL as well.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the neighbourhood plan and concern about the reduction in possible reduction in infrastructure payments, which we're relying on. I mean, we've got a bid in at the moment for SIL to complete the funding of the new tennis courts at the Salts.
Yeah.
You know, so that's important to the community.
Yes. With
a bit of luck, we'll get the £40,000 SIL money, because the bids are going in for SIL money at the moment. Before the deadline's the end of September, and if we can get some support for that, that means that we can get the tennis court scheme done. So that's the practical importance of getting SIL payments and getting extra SIL payments because of the status of the neighbourhood plan. So you know, it's an ongoing issue.
Right, Councillor Hanneman, do you want to come back before?
Just quickly on 2.7, the exception sites. Is that an issue for Seaford at all? It certainly was with the neighbourhood plan when we discussed the various sites around what we call the. Or does it mean, when it means the local plan, or when we're talking about the district council local plan, are we talking about the local plan or the local planning plan? What are we talking about with local planning? See what I mean? I just thought, is that important for Seaford in any way? I'm just thinking of the Seaford aspect as opposed to the general.
I think exception sites, up until now, they've been rural exception sites. So, and I think they mainly relate to rural areas, but it's an interesting point. But I mean, again, it hasn't been set out.
Okay.
I mean, that's where, yeah, the 100% affordable sites. I mean, there was a proposed affordable site at Pevensey that was a rural exception site. There haven't been many, but I think they're mainly in rural areas on the edge of villages, on land which would normally be kept as rural land because it's sort of outside the dotted line around villages, but can be used for exceptional developments like 100% affordable if there's a real pressing need to keep the village facilities in place. You know, you needing more residences. So I think that's aimed mainly at that sort of site, special sites on the edge of villages which wouldn't normally be developed. But it's an interesting point.
Okay, maybe it'll come out more with the bill when it comes out a bit more detail
exactly.
next time. Thank you for that.
Okay. Councillor Borman?
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit that I've heard from Lewis District Council over the last few days is the exceptional sites. There are some exceptions in the local plan, but that's starting to get less and less because obviously the neighbourhood plans, and there is a big overlap between this white paper and the next white paper, but there's more detail in the next white paper. So neighbourhood plans in the next paper are a big thing, and that's what they're looking at. That's what is being brought forward supposedly, but I haven't read the paper fully. But exception sites where they're kind of on the borders of a village, or even Seaford has got some exception sites like around because it borders the town and South Downs National Park kind of thing. So there are some sites.
I think you've frozen the.
She blinked.
You finished, Councillor Borman, because you sort of froze towards the end.
Sorry, I think I've got too many children now on internet.
All right. Okay.
Meeting's too long.
Thank you. Okay, so can I have a proposer and seconder that you know, the points that we put forward, and Jeff will make our comments, forward our comments. Can I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Argent, and seconded by Councillor Borman, and all agreeable?
Right. Thank you.
All agreeable. Thank you. Thank you on that. And so, as mentioned by Jeff, agenda item 6, just to note the contents of the report, and the response will be sought from the committee at its meeting on the 8th of October. So we've got time to study this and you know, and bring some useful comments forward.
There's a link to the full document as well there for if people want, if members want to sort of read it more detail of the various parts.
That's on page 12 of your agenda.
So that'll come on the agenda again next time.
Yeah. So everybody noted the agenda item 6. Noted. Thank you. Go on to agenda item 7, and this is to consider a road closure for application of Seaford Christmas Magic, and any comments to be forwarded to Lewis District Council.
There's an update on this. Sorry, circumstances have changed since the application for the road closures went in. There's a report to community services meeting next Monday that's already been circulated, which points out the problems with COVID restrictions on holding a sort of market within Broad Street because of the way it would have to be organised. It would have to be sort of fenced off. There'd have to be restrictions on circulation, restrictions on the number of people coming in, coming out, which would be sort of prejudicial to the flow, the normal flow of people between the existing shops and the market. So it's because it was decided, because of those restrictions, that well, the report has gone to the Community Services Committee for consideration on Monday night to have the Christmas Magic, a scaled down version of Christmas Magic and the market at Crouch Gardens and the Crouch generally on the Saturday, the first Saturday in December, rather than the normal location in Broad Street and around that area. So it's unlikely that very unlikely that these road closures will be required. There's still a possibility if there's a huge change of circumstances between now and December in the nature of the restrictions, etc., but it's subject to the discussions on Monday at the Community Services Committee, subject to the resolution there. It looks like Christmas Magic will be held elsewhere rather than in the normal location. So you're entitled to okay the road closures if Christmas Magic, in the unlikely event of Christmas Magic being held as normal, but as I say, it's been overtaken by circumstances, other circumstances.
Councillor Borman?
Yeah, thank you. Can we just put our response to the fact that we agree to these, but we obviously know that there's changes, and we are looking into the fact that there are changes, that we could hold it somewhere else, but we accept these.
Yes, what I'll do
just
is
in case.
I'll tell Lewes District Council, who coordinate these things, exactly what the situation is as I've explained it to you. So I will say, you know, it's going to be discussed on Monday, and I will find out what the decision is on Monday and let Lewes District know, so that they know exactly whether the road closures are going to go ahead or not. Because they're the ones that need to know, because they liaise with the police and everything like that. Although we will as well, of course. Yeah. But I think it will help the flow of communication if I do that. So I'll go back and explain to LDC what the current situation is with regard to the arrangements for Christmas Magic, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. So if the committee, you know, there's no further comments and have any comments on the road closures, we just leave it, you know, like we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think so. Leave it as it is, because I cancelled the French market that's supposed to be on tomorrow down Broad Street, Church Street.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think we just have to wait until for things to happen, basically.
Yeah. So Lewis know about that, the cancellation of the market there?
No, they just said if it doesn't happen, you don't close the road.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see.
Okay, Councillor Honeyman?
As I say, I'm not on community services, but I think it's quite a good alternative to go in Crouch Gardens area. I think you could probably keep it more. You could get a one-way system going, all the rest of it. It should be a bit more straightforward, and you could hopefully be able to decorate the trees as well. Get into that festive mood up to a point. So. Okay, so I accept you're just covering yourself just in case, but the chance of this happening doesn't
very
look
slim.
very slim at the moment.
That'd be a big change if we're going to go back to the normal arrangements.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that.
Okay. Any further comments? So, if we just note the report and as there's no further comments. Okay, noted. Thank you. And that leads us on to, there we are. Agenda item 8, and this is to note the contents of the report. And I think Jeff is keeping us on the
toes. There's a mistake. The approvals should read no objection from SDC, so makes it appear that we object to everything. Which,
You're just testing us out, I know
yeah.
that.
Well, yeah. At least I noticed it, before the meeting. So yes, it's quite smooth. All the decisions we've received have been in accordance with our views. It's particularly interesting to note the installation of the air conditioning units, which Councillor Meat was particularly interested in. That was refused on the potential noise problems and adverse impact on the character, the appearance of the building. And the other application that Councillor Meat was interested in, 3 Sherwood Road, that's not surprisingly been refused again. So that will go to appeal and possible enforcement. So all 3 of those refusals were based on.
And also the Briars, 93 Pearl Road, that's the second time that's been refused.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
right. Yeah, so that's likely to go to appeal as well, I would have thought.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see what happens on those.
Yeah. Okay, unless there's any comments on there, we just note the Councillor Meat.
So, sorry, Chair, could I just come back to you, Jeff, on that 3 Sherwood Road?
Yeah.
Just so that I understand. Sorry if other people aren't interested.
No.
It's across the road from me. Just to he will obviously go to appeal, but presumably there's pretty strong grounds for enforcement on this, considering he's appropriated part of a garden, which was a property he owns, admittedly, but I just wondered quite how it goes forward with that, Jeff, in your view. If he goes to appeal, it'll get seen by an independent assessor who will then look at it on its own merits again. Is it likely that he would even get planning, get it granted on that grounds?
Well, there's quite a bit against it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a clear refusal. It hasn't, to my mind, it hasn't really got a lot going for it. And any inspector looking at it is bound to be informed of the other problems that there have been with this incorporation of the 2 curtilages, the removal of the, so it would be quite clear to an inspector that this is not, it can't be looked at in isolation. It's part of a sort of grander scheme, none of which has really been consented to, because you can't really cover that up, in any way. So I think the inspector will get a pretty good idea of what's going on, and most inspectors wouldn't be too impressed with it. But I don't know exactly what Lewes District Council is doing as far as enforcement's concerned. I don't get many updates. But if something's been refused and it's in place, which this one is, that it's got to be enforced against. They can't ignore it. So it's automatic.
Councillor Borman.
Lewes District Council does not have an enforcement officer at present. They left. They are recruiting a new one. Really? But obviously there is which ends, I think, Monday. They're for advertising, and then they're interviewing, and hopefully they'll find one. But yes, at present, Lewes District Council does not have an enforcement officer, and it's Environment First, Neighbourhood First that are going around viewing the complaints, but they're not qualified to deal with things. Just to let the committee know.
Yeah. I'm surprised because of the workload. They've lost a good officer there.
Oh, they've lost a very good officer. And Linda, we tried to support to have a second enforcement officer because they need to in Lewes District. But yes, no.
Yeah.
What's sad. Chair, what's amazing is that that the gall of this guy who's just continued in the face of everything makes a lot of neighbours reckon that he must have someone working on the inside, because he's so obviously so convinced that he's just going to get it through, and he'll kind of brazen out any criticism or legislation against him. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, yeah. Councillor Borman?
Sorry, just come back to Councillor Meeks. I am campaigning with government officials for retrospective planning, that repeat offenders are fined. Once, maybe, but repeat offenders need to be fined, and I am working on that to get that sorted.
Good for you, Councillor. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. Keep us posted. Right, so if there's no other comments, I'll close this meeting at, I've got a clue what time it is.
8:28.
8:28. Yes, thank you everybody.
Thanks.
Okay.